In the headlines, Ethiopia accuses Sudan of still forcefully occupying lands on its soil. And the IGAD expresses readiness to observe Uganda's elections. Hello and welcome to this news hour. I'm Daniel Kasahun with the news. Ethiopia says the Sudanese forces have continued forcefully occupying lands inside its territory despite repeated pleas. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated that Ethiopia remains committed to resolve the ongoing border dispute with the Sudan amicably. This came here on Tuesday when the ministry spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti briefed journalists on major activities by the ministry over the past 2 weeks. Haptama Shagre reports.
The ministry discloses that Ethiopia is exerting efforts to settle the border dispute with the Sudan. Tensions in the border region have flared since the outbreak of conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region in early November and the arrival of thousands of refugees in eastern Sudan. There have been armed clashes between Sudanese and Ethiopian forces in recent weeks. There have been talks over the issue between the two sides. Speaking on the occasion, ministry spokesperson Dina Mufti said the Sudanese armed forces have forcefully occupied Ethiopian sovereign lands. According to the spokesperson, Ethiopia is committed to solve the existing border dispute based on the 1972 agreement. Ethiopia has indicated that it wants the 1902 status quo to remain intact.
The Sudanese armed forces have encouraged They pushed into the Ethiopian territory, and they have occupied Ethiopian land, and they have occupied farms and embezzled, looted properties. They have created a lot of problems in the areas. To add an insult to injury, they have started claiming that the land that they have forcefully occupied is theirs. Though we have been talking on the border issues per the 1972 exchange notes, and that this is quite unlawful and unhelpful, and we believe this is not helpful for Sudanese, it's not helpful for Ethiopian as well, and the Ethiopian government has been tolerant enough and magnanimous enough to tell the Sudanese side, our Sudanese colleagues, that let's take care of the friendship, robust relationship, and cordial relationships that have been existing, that have been prevailing between our two countries. Let us not harm it. And this is the message that have been constantly being sent to the Sudanese side. And they were asking them to observe the status quo. That the status quo had been there since 1902.
The two countries are organizing committees aiming to discuss and find possible ways to resolve the border dispute, the spokesperson noted. Regarding the tripartite negotiation on the GED project, Sudan has withdrawn from the last tripartite negotiation between the water ministers of the three countries. The spokesperson reaffirmed that the Sudanese have opted to take a new position and withdraw from the GED talk.
This negotiation has been stalled for over a month, though it has started last January 3. There had been a meeting of ministers of water and foreign affairs of the three countries, where they have decided to launch their expertise to identify the differences and the consensus of the so far held discussions at the tripartite level. Though the Sudanese side withdrew from that meeting, and the pretext they have presented was they have been asking to meet the African experts, and they were asking for the elevating the African expertise status during the negotiations.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Demeke Mekonnen held telephone conversation with High Representative for the Foreign Affairs and Security Policy of European Union, Joseph Borrell, about the rehabilitation activities in the state of Tigray.
There was also a telephone conversation between Deputy Prime Minister and Joseph Borrell, the Commissioner for the EU Peace and Security. The Deputy Prime Minister has briefed him on the current reconstruction process in Tigray. He briefed him on the formations of the interim government in the region, and the fact that the interim government is also expanding its structures to the grassroots levels. He briefed the Commissioner also about the coordinations between the humanitarian institutions and the government with regard to the operations on the ground in Tigray.
The ministry has undertaken successful public diplomatic forum and repatriation of Ethiopians from Middle East over the past 2 weeks, Dina added.
We have also had a public diplomacy forum here, and the Deputy Prime Minister have engaged them as well. We had also a repatriation of the compatriots from the Middle East, where we have repatriated closer to 700 citizens from both Saudi and Oman.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs disclosed the appointment of Labour attache for the Middle East countries to secure the interest of Ethiopians working abroad. The move is believed to address long-standing bottlenecks facing Ethiopian citizens' economic benefit in the Middle East.
To make the working environment conducive and profitable for our citizens working in the Middle East, we are negotiating with all relevant stakes on the matter. Of course, much more expected from our citizens to make that happen.
The minister highlighted the importance of assigning well-trained labor attache for the Middle East countries to secure the interests of Ethiopian citizens working in the region.
One cannot merely point a labor attache to a specific country. There has to be knowledge and experience-based appointments with regard to the country's foreign policy, like other diplomats. That's why we have been offering trainings to them with the view to secure interests of Ethiopian citizens who are working in the Middle East countries.
The Ministry of Health commenced celebrating the 15th annual Safe Motherhood Month yesterday. Women ministers, including Minister of Health Dr. Leah Tadessa and other invited officials, attended the event. In her remarks, Dr. Leah said the government has attached due attention to improve maternal health. She said the number of antenatal care visits have jumped to 51% now from only 10% 10 years ago. However, the number of women dying during pregnancy and delivery is still high, the minister said. In her closing remark, Dr. Leah called on all stakeholders to do their level best to reduce maternal deaths. The annual Safe Motherhood Month will be celebrated until the end of this month. You are watching this news hour. In business, many had doubted if Ethiopia's all-rounder reform, initiated back in 2018, would succeed in realizing grand projects like the Addis Ababa Riverside Unity Park and the Entoto National Park. The success of these landmark projects stunned Ethiopians and the global community. Talking to ETV, Jonas Ayaleo of the Ethiopian Construction Works Corporation said these landmark projects are a manifestation of improvement in Ethiopia's capability in the construction industry.
የኮንስትራክሽን በጣም ውስብስብ የሆኑ ችግሮች አሉበት ብዙ አንሰርቲኒቲስ ወይም ደግሞ
The construction industry still faces daunting challenges, while lots of uncertainties persist. However, these all can be tackled with cautious planning. I would like to call upon consultant, contractors, and construction company owners to try and narrow difference regarding overall sector and design issues. If we do this, we can achieve much progress in the construction industry. The Sugar and Toto and other recent projects are a manifestation of what we can do if these problems are tackled.
The CEO added the construction projects should embrace scientific principles rather than going in a traditional way.
Much of Ethiopia's construction industry has been based on tradition. However, it is high time modern principles are applied into it. We, the contractors, have to know each and everything on our project scientifically before we go about the actual construction work.
The Federation of Indian Export Organization organized a virtual business forum on the topic trade and investment opportunities between India and Ethiopia post-COVID-19. Tizita Mulgeta, Ambassador of Ethiopia to India, Robert Shektong, Ambassador of India to Ethiopia, Yusuf Demnour, Secretary General of the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Association, invited guests, and over 120 Indian business people joined the virtual event. In her opening remarks, Ambassador Zita, after reminding the strong commercial relation existing between the two countries, briefed the Indian business people on the conducive investment opportunities in Ethiopia. India is the third largest source of FDI and compared to the untapped potential of Ethiopia on various sectors. Indian investors, she said, should explore more and take part in the development path of the country.
This year's celebration is equally warm and appealing as last year's. It's very exciting to be here. It's peaceful here and a wonderful holiday.
It is my time to celebrate Epiphany here. I'm so happy and I would like to say Happy Epiphany to all.
This festival time to time is being liked by tourists who come here from across the world. It's so exciting that you wouldn't want to miss it for the world.
Epiphany ceremony of Christ celebrates throughout the world. The unique part in Ethiopia is we adore, venerate Ark of the Covenant. This is one. The second one is there is a thing throughout the world. That is, this is the water who deprived me not to baptize. This is said by an Ethiopian eunuch during the time of Christ's ascension. The composer of this song is an Ethiopian eunuch, Bakos. This is another peculiar thing for Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
You are watching at this news hour. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD's observers have been flagged off ahead of the Ugandan election on Thursday. Also, the East African Standby Force has announced the arrival of its observers who say they will urge tolerance throughout the electoral process. Allah Tekla Mariam has more from CGTN.
The Intergovernmental Authority's elections observers will be deployed in the major metropolitan areas of Kampala, Mokano, Wachiso, Luro, and MPG districts.
in accordance with the terms of reference that has been prepared by the IGAD Secretariat based on the African Union Election Observation Guideline. I made and held talks with various stakeholders on the election process. On 8 January, I met with the chairman and the commissioner of the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Uganda.
Also, this African Standby Force Observation Mission is in the country to monitor the presidential and parliamentary elections. Ambassador Ahmada Hamadi from the Union of Comoros said the team is urging candidates and political leaders to maintain respect and tolerance throughout the election process.
The ESF calls on voters to actively engage and carry out their civic obligation and constitutional duty by voting in the elections.
The East Africa Standby Force will issue a preliminary statement with the objective assessment of the electoral process on Friday, 15 January 2021.
South Africa will temporarily close its land borders to curb the spread of COVID-19. This is one of the latest measures announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa. In a televised national address, Ramaphosa also announced that the country will remain on the same level of the lockdown, that is level 3. Jerusalem Baza takes up CGTN's file.
Over the past few weeks, there has been a heavy condition at border posts. Travelers often spend hours in queues stretching several kilometers. The queues had been slowed down by coronavirus screening. Government believes that these border posts have now become areas of high risk of transmission and therefore should be closed at least until February 15.
One of the challenges that we have as the festive season draws to a close is the huge congestion at many of our land border posts. This has exposed many people to infection as they wait to be processed, and it has been difficult to ensure that the health requirements for entry into South Africa are met, with many people arriving without proof of COVID-19 tests.
The border posts to be closed include Bet Bridge, which connects South Africa and Zimbabwe, Libombo, which provides entry into Mozambique, as well as the Masero Bridge, Buddha Post with Lesotho. Only specific circumstances under which travel will be allowed. These include the transport of goods and cargo, as well as the return of South African citizens and permanent residents. The president implored the South Africans to remain more vigilant as the new variant of the virus ravaged parts of the country.
Emerging information suggests that this new variant does not cause more severe illness than the original variants. But it does put more pressure on the health system because the cases increase so rapidly and the hospitals get full much more quickly.
The president said South Africans should avoid what he calls the 3 C's: closed space, crowded space, and close contact with others. He particularly railed against the attending of funerals.
We are in the grip of a deadly pandemic, and all those activities that would normally take place are just increasing our exposure to risk for ourselves and for the bereaved family and for our own families at home.
And at this level of lockdown, curfew will be from 9 p.m. and end at 5 a.m.
Finally, in 1960, barefoot Abebe Bikila won an Olympic marathon in